The Denver Broncos get their first win under Vic Fangio in the month of September with a road victory 27-13 against the New York Giants. We go through our Broncos offense and defensive takeaways on today's brand new episode, Locked on Broncos.
You are Locked on Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, Broncos Country? Welcome back into a brand new episode, Locked on Broncos, your daily Denver Broncos podcast here on the Locked on NFL Network, your team every day from the South Stands to the end zone. I'm your host, as always, Cody Roark, joined alongside my co-host, Sayre Bedinger. The Broncos back in the win column, Sayre. And look, a very impressive road win for the most part. Obviously, there's some things, some concerns that we have in terms of what the Broncos can brush up on, a couple of missed opportunities, but more importantly, a big storyline. One key player goes down with a big injury. It's going to be out quite an amount of time, potentially not the whole season, thankfully, but obviously a lot to take away here on today's episode of Locked on Broncos.
Absolutely, Cody. And we just got done listening to Vic Fangio handing out game balls. And you know what? I feel like you and I should be getting one in the mail since we, combined forces on this podcast, including preseason. The Broncos haven't touched the loss column. So, I feel like we got to give credit where it's due, right? I feel like you and I are the primary reason why this is happening right now.
Hey, I'm with it, my friend. And Broncos Country might agree here. But, I think just the synergy with this Broncos football team, look, they face some adversity here. And just a reminder, Locked on Broncos is available free and everywhere you get your podcast, not to mention on YouTube. So if you want to stay in on the action with Sayre and I every single day and even every post game, make sure you hit that subscribe button. But Sayre, let's dive right into it. Some of the key storylines, obviously the Broncos 27-13 victory over the New York Giants. Let's talk about the biggest one right now and probably the most negative aspect of this game. Jerry Jeudy leaving the game with an ankle injury that looked very bad on replay, getting rolled up under, immediately being carted off the field. It was just a big blow. I felt gutted watching that because Jerry had a tremendous first down catch to help move the chains to keep the Broncos drive alive. And initially they thought it was a fumble, but I would have lost the ball too, having been rolled up like that. His knee was down, luckily, but man, Jerry Jeudy expected to be out maybe 6 to 8 weeks minimum with a high ankle sprain. Vic Fangio said in his post-game presser, they're still going to do an MRI. So 6 to 8 weeks is preliminary based on x-ray where you see bone and structure, but it does not account for ligaments. So let's just hope that there's nothing wrong with any ligaments in his ankle.
Definitely. Best wishes to Jerry Jeudy. Obviously, ugly to see any guy get rolled up like that. And of course, a lot of the talk going into this game was about the Giants field and injuries. Of course, this didn't have anything to do with the field. It was just the play of the game. So, I think with Jerry Jeudy, he obviously had a really strong game prior to that injury. He was becoming, sort of the main target in the passing game. And Teddy Bridgewater was finding him. And it wasn't necessarily getting Jeudy in space where he can make a ton of plays after the catch. But Jeudy was actually making some tough plays and some contested coverage. So I think that there's definitely a sigh of relief knowing that it's not broken, right? I think after watching the replay of it, a lot of times when you can tell guys break their ankles, obviously, right? It's pointing in opposite direction. But with Jeudy, it looked like it was kind of like the defense, like you said, bend, not break. And hopefully, even though the early returns are high ankle sprain, potential of it being 6 to 8 weeks, hopefully Judy's able to get back soon. But obviously with a player like him and the things that he does, an ankle injury is something that you have to be very, very careful with.
Yeah, for Jerry Jeudy, 6 catches, 72 yards on the day before leaving with that ankle injury. As you mentioned, the chemistry between he and Teddy Bridgewater was great. We're going to focus on Teddy in our next segment coming up, but let's talk about the Broncos offense, a very efficient showing than I think from what we've been accustomed to seeing, Sayre. And I think a lot of that has to do with Teddy Bridgewater, but the Broncos, we talked about it, they got to be good on third down, right? 7 of 15 on third down plays. You like to see that type of efficiency, but let's talk about fourth down, 3 for 3 on fourth down. Vic Fangio holding up the wheelbarrow with his cojones there, really talking about, we're going to go for it. He's like, I got a gut feeling. I feel like we have to go for it. And they convert 3 times. One of them being at midfield. I was impressed with the Broncos offense. There's still some things they have to clean up, but look, 420 yards of total offense. Teddy looked really well commanding that huddle. The run game got going. Melvin Gordon had a big gashing play, 70-yard touchdown down the stretch. Your initial thoughts on the Broncos offense here and the victory?
Yeah, so much for the idea, I guess, that you and I had talked about, that Vic Fangio wouldn't go for those fourth downs that he did in the Seattle preseason game, right? I think even Vic acknowledged he wouldn't do that. So definitely surprised to see that. And Vic Fangio reminded me a lot of me when I used to play Madden, Cody. I'm like, screw the punter, man. Why did I pick up the sticks to play Madden, not to punt? I'm going to go ahead, and I feel like I've got a good chance to make this play. And I love that he acknowledged, yeah, I didn't really have a whole lot of support. And there may be times when he does that again, get like a 3-point shooter that's like, a heat check type of thing where he'll go for a 4th down and they won't get it, and it'll be a scathing review after the game. But man, I'm super impressed just by the decision to do it. You're 0 in September for your career as a head coach, 0-7 going into this game. Why not go for it on 4th down, man? Screw the odds, and in fact, I bet you the odds are even in his favor. I mean, what are the odds you're going to get a 4-yard play on 4th and 3? What are the odds you're going to get a 5-yard play on 4th and 2? I mean, the odds are probably in your favor more than we think. And so I think Vic Fangio is thinking, look, like Teddy Bridgewater's out there completing. I don't see the final completion percentage, but it was high, a high percentage of his passes. Why not let him go out there, throw a pass, do what he's been doing? And he did that. And the Broncos' biggest plays came as a result of those 4th down conversions. So I think there's definitely a lot of positives to take from this game. Offensively, the running game was a little bit, stifled for most of the game. And then, of course, the huge run from Melvin Gordon late. But I think obviously the story in this game is the aggressiveness from Fangio and the willingness to trust in an offense that wasn't, I wouldn't call it dink and dunk, Cody. I think that's unfair. I think that it was just kind of like, just like Vic said in the post-game presser, kind of matriculating down the field. That was the word that he used. So that's kind of how I saw it. And I thought it was efficient. I mean, it wasn't necessarily, lighting it up for fantasy football players, but at the same time, as a fan of the team, you got to be pleased with the way it went.
Yeah, and we'll talk a little bit more about what Teddy was able to do, kind of our general takeaways from how he commanded the offense too. But I do want to make note, special teams, I'm still a little concerned. Mike Ford looked great, by the way, getting downfield on every coverage. I mean, he was the one guy that kind of stood out here for the Denver Broncos. 2 punts by the Broncos, averaging 39 yards. I have concerns about this. Look, I get that you're in New York. I get you didn't punt that much. That's great. That the Broncos offense was so efficient in that regard. Brendan McManus is automatic. I mean, I'm not worried about that. I am worried about kick coverage. I am worried a little bit more so about the punting unit itself, because you have to have punts have hang time. And Sam Martin's first punt was not very good for the Broncos. Any quick concerns that you'd like to share about that?
Yeah, I don't understand what Sam Martin was doing on the first punt. I'm sure he was trying to hit it and let it kind of roll, but it actually bounced the wrong way. So, I mean, that to me is just a sign of like, I hate more than anything, Cody, watching a game and your team is trying to play not to lose, or individual players are doing things not to lose. And I feel like to me, that was just a bad idea. I mean, you're being paid a lot of money to be able to pin the ball inside the 10-yard line. Go ahead and do that, right? Don't roll it in there. Go ahead and pin the guy inside the 10, get some hang time, let your coverage unit get down there. I'm sure that, to Sam Martin's credit, I'm sure that was a called play by Tom McMahon to kind of pooch it down there. So you can't just spread blame to just one guy. So I am concerned about Tom McMahon and the things that he's doing. Like he was talking before the game or on Friday at his press conference about doing some weird stuff on kickoff returns. It's like, well, didn't you keep Deontay Spencer specifically to do that kind of stuff? The Tom McMahon shtick is getting really old with me, Cody, and I'm kind of just over it at this point. I want to see more plays like what we saw from Mike Ford for sure. He was good in this game. It's good to have him in orange and blue wearing number 12. It's super weird. I'm like, wait, who's wearing number 12 again? I had to think, like, was that Tyree Cleveland because he has the long hair and the braids? And no, it's Mike Ford, the defensive back, wearing number 12 out there. So good to have him on the coverage units today for sure. He did a great job.
Absolutely. And Broncos Country, Sayre. Now, we're going to dive a little bit into Teddy Bridgewater's performance, commanding of the huddle, coming up here in just a moment. But before we do that, folks, let me tell you about the sponsor of today's episode show. That's our good friends over there at Run Your Pool. And football season is officially back. We had a great week 1 lineup all across the National Football League, but let's make the most of it with a better way to create your custom pool at runyourpool.com, the premier sports pool hosting service. Run Your Pool makes it ridiculously easy to run a football pool with friends, family, or even office mates like all of us here at the Locked On Podcast Network. They offer dozens of formats, including Survivor, Pick'em, Squares, Margin, Confidence Pools, 33 and more, and Run Your Pool hosts formats for NFL and college football with 1 week game, full season, playoffs, or the Super Bowl. And unlike fantasy sports platforms, Run Your Pool has options and settings to make it your own. I want you to check it out today and get $10 off at runyourpool.com/lockedon, or use our promo code LOCKEDON at checkout. Anywhere, everywhere in the world, Run Your Pool helps friends and colleagues compete. The NFL season starts September 9th, so start today. Runyourpool.com/lockedon and have your pool up and running in minutes at runyourpool.com/lockedon. All right, Sayre, let's get into Teddy Bridgewater's performance for the Broncos. Now, I think coming into this game, when we gave our keys to the game here for the Broncos, I think a lot of our conversation really revolved around, can Teddy Bridgewater protect the football? And I say for the most part, looking back at his snaps, I can't wait to go through and watch the review. And also all 22 is expected to be back this week. So fingers crossed to the football gods, they actually give that to us. I was impressed with Teddy's poise in the pocket for the Broncos. And you can tell that his veteran stature as a quarterback in the National Football League, I mean, it was hard to ignore that aura that was there because he was confident. He wasn't shaken when the pocket was collapsing around him, when pressure was coming up. He took the ball several times and ran with his legs. What were your general takeaways from Teddy's big day for the Broncos?
Well, I don't mean to overreact, Cody, but I mean, if Teddy Bridgewater plays like this for the entire duration of the season, I mean, the Denver Broncos are going places. That's what I tweeted. That's what I believe. If he can play at this high of a level, I don't care how long the drives take. If Teddy Bridgewater is playing this well, throwing this high of a completion rate, hitting his receivers, distributing the ball to the different playmakers, and operating the offense efficiently, the Broncos are going to win a lot of games. And I know a lot of people that didn't want Teddy Bridgewater to win the job are going to hate hearing that. Me, Cody, I wanted Drew Lock to win the job. I can't hide from that. I said it a number of times. I wanted him to potentially be the future of the team because I didn't know, nobody knows what Teddy Bridgewater is beyond this season. He's not under contract. But the reality of the matter is that it's a one season. You got all you got is this season. And so if Teddy plays well, who knows what could happen? And I think that with the Denver Broncos, if he plays as well as he did, they're going to be contending in the playoffs. They're going to be playing. That defense is going to continue to improve, and Teddy Bridgewater is going to benefit from that as well. I think the huge thing for me in this game, Cody, is the fact that we saw Teddy make throws to all levels of the field accurately. There's a lot of question about, well, can Teddy really chuck the ball deep, and can he do that type of stuff? I think KJ Hamler will tell you Teddy Bridgewater can throw the ball deep. So there's definitely a lot of positive to take from this game from Teddy Bridgewater. I don't have a whole lot of negative. I don't think that he did anything that was really necessarily bad. There's a couple of throws here and there, but for the most part, he was on point and he was accurate. He was efficient. He was on time. He ran, like you said, he got out of the pocket when he needed to. Yeah, he might have taken a sack, but man, it was about as good of a regular season debut as I think Broncos fans could have hoped for from Teddy.
Yeah, and I think that Teddy probably exceeded a lot of Broncos fans. Look, I think that there are still a lot of Broncos fans that are on the fence about Teddy, but I felt like with his performance against the Giants, and look, I can't understate it enough, Sayre. I don't think many people are giving the Giants defense credit. Leonard Williams, he manhandled Dalton Reisner and Graham Glasgow several times, and even Lloyd Cushenberry. And we were talking about it. Yeah. We were texting back and forth during the game. Leonard Williams is a damn good football player, but those guys, the Broncos offensive line, they had their hands full a little bit. And that secondary, too, was pretty good when you factor in Logan Ryan. Adoree Jackson, who I didn't think was going to play this game, had pretty good coverage on Cortland Sutton and also some other guys, too. Not to mention, too, James Bradbury. I thought that for the most part, the Giants defense, Blake Martinez also, I know you're going to like that. Blake Martinez played a really good football game for the Giants as well. He was tough. He made things hard for the Broncos to run the football sometimes on the inside. Denver did have success on the outside, but going back to your point here about Teddy Bridgewater, he was given a game ball by Vic Fangio after the game, and I think that you couldn't ask for anything more. But his day, 28 of 36 passing, 264 yards, 2 touchdowns, really methodical in marching the Broncos downfield, and I would say keeping a young offense composed. To me, that was something that stood out because there were a couple times the Broncos went backwards. And the immediate thing that popped up in my head is, how is the offense going to respond, right? Because there was a screenplay, I think, to Javonte Williams that went back for -3. One of their first plays went back -2 yards because it was the first snap of the game. It didn't seem like Teddy got the snap right to Melvin Gordon. It seemed like there was a little bit of a bobble there. And so I was like, okay, this is going to be huge for the Broncos. And then he delivers a strike to Noah Fant, who gets a first down, who Noah Fant had a pretty good game as well. I know there's a lot of guys that are going to get lost in the shuffle here, but I do want to pinpoint here that Teddy Bridgewater connected with multiple guys, 6 receivers, passed 10-plus yards downfield, picking up a first down. You love to see that balance. You love to see that efficiency. And while the concerns about Jerry Jeudy's injury loom large for this team as to who's going to step up, is it going to be Tyree Cleveland? Is it going to be Seth Williams? Who's going to relish in that role while Jerry is out? Do the Broncos look at bringing somebody in? I mean, there's so many different things we can look at here. I really want to go through the fact that Teddy was in command the entire time. And I hate to say this nickname because I feel like it's used in a negative way, but when people call Teddy steady, that's not a bad thing. And I think that there are some people out there that have tried to turn it into a bad narrative. You said it best. If Teddy plays this way for the Broncos consistently, they're going to win some games if the defense can make some adjustments here. The Broncos defense didn't play up to the standard that I think you and I both know that they can. And obviously we're going to talk about the defense in a little bit here, but outside of that, what was something that you feel like Teddy could improve on in this next game? Because I also go back to it as well. There's that missed touchdown opportunity that KJ Hamler had, just a wide open drop. And I've already seen people blaming Teddy Bridgewater. Oh, he didn't lead him in stride. It hit KJ right in the hands. I don't know why we continue to make excuses to try to deflect for the quarterback narrative. Teddy took a shot downfield. Now, I will say, the one pass that probably Teddy wants back, that one to Noah Fant, he had that play action all the way across the field. He got up behind the defense. And Teddy, if he floats it, he's going to hit Noah in stride, potentially for a touchdown. He undershots it there. That's probably the one he'll want back. But look, Teddy was efficient for the Broncos, and he helped the entire offense, in my opinion. His presence alone, I think, amplified the Broncos' offensive opportunities.
It really did. It really did. I think for me, the one throw was a potential miss. It might have been even the same play you're talking about where he could have hit Noah Fant over the top if he would have just floated it. There was Tim Patrick right behind Noah Fant as well, kind of wide open there. So
the corner route as well early on in one of those first drives. Yep. There was that one too.
Yeah, exactly. So there's definitely a room for improvement. Don't get me wrong. It's not like Teddy went out there and had a 158.3 quarterback rating and was just wheeling and dealing and chucking the ball downfield and, being Mahomes-y like out there. But at the same time, much better than what we've grown accustomed to in the post-Peyton Manning era for the Denver Broncos and even in Peyton Manning's final season. That was one of the better all-around QB performances, sadly, that we've seen in the last 5 years, right? I mean, there was some definite, big-time performances in there from Trevor Siemian, Drew Lock, and others, but it was one of the more efficient games. And so I think definitely pleased with what Teddy did, and definitely room for improvement, which is a great thing. It's a really great thing. The fact that he can improve, the fact that I think the Broncos can get Courtland Sutton a lot more involved, the fact that I think now Tim Patrick is going to be able to get a lot more involved. Maybe you get those tight ends even more involved. I think that there's as well as he distributed the ball, we need to see more Sutton. We need to see more Tim Patrick. It was a lot of, a lot of just filtering through the tight ends, specifically Noah Fant, a lot of pass plays that were either designed, shorter, which is fine. But I think that it's definitely a room or an area that he can improve in going forward.
Absolutely. And hey, I want to give a shout out to the tight ends because Albert Okwuegbunam had that fumble on the 4-yard line, redeemed himself with a tremendous play, a touchdown on 4th down, catching it, body control, getting it across the pylon. That was huge because that was on the drive a few plays after Jerry Jeudy went down with the injury that we were all just like, we were deflated. I felt really defeated in that, Sayre. I know I texted you that. I was like, man, even the Broncos win. If they lose Jerry Jeudy for the year, I feel defeated there. Eric Saubert with a tremendous block. He's been fantastic. And Tim Patrick coming up big for the Broncos when they needed it the most as well. So there's a lot to go around. There's probably going to be some players we didn't really get to talk as much about that. I know that fans are going to be like, hey, what about this guy? But Broncos Country, we only have so much time. And coming up here in just a moment, we got to talk about the defensive side of the ball. That's what Sayre and I are going to do. But before we do that, let me tell you about the two sponsors of today's postgame report. Locked On Broncos are good friends over there, DirecTV Stream and Built Bar. Now, with DirecTV Stream, does this sound familiar to you? You've got one device that lets you catch the game live. You've got another one that lets you stream your favorite shows, and you're watching sports highlights on your phone, and you've got your neighbor's best friend's login for all the good stuff. Well, I want to tell you a simple way that you can get all the entertainment you love without the hassle, and a great way to finally get your TV together. That's called DirecTV Stream, and it brings you your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, so you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling the remotes and no need to buy another device ever again. And the best part, there is no annual contract. So get rid of the clutter and the confusion. Get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. Once again, that's directtv.com. Compatible device is required. Content varies by package, and our good friends over there at Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar on the market. Sayre, I've gone through almost my entire box of 18 peanut butter brownie Built Bars. I put them in the fridge for about 30 minutes. They have a little bit of hardness to them, but they're soft and they're easy to chew. That's one thing I really admire about Built Bar. But the thing I love the most is that they are the best tasting protein bar. A lot of great flavors, 9 amazing flavors, including the occasional limited time flavor. But I also love that they're healthy for you. 17 grams of protein, 130 calories, only 4 grams of sugar. And I want you and your family to get your hands on a box of Built Bar today by going to Built.com. And when you go to checkout, use promo code LOCK15. That'll get you 15% off your next order. Once again, promo code LOCK15 gets you 15% off your next order at Built.com. All right, Sayre, jumping to the fourth quarter action. Today's episode, Locked On Broncos, our post-game report. The Broncos victorious 27-13 over the New York Giants. We talked about the offense. We talked about the key storylines there. But let's talk about the defense here. Really kind of a bend but don't break approach from them, against the Giants here. But the story, and we were all looking forward to it. What is Von Miller going to look like? Well, guess what? Von Miller, he got a game ball, and he had 2 sacks. I was watching him and Draymond for a majority of the game. I just wanted to see how he was. And I tell you what, Von was an absolute force off the edge against the run and creating pressure. In your opinion, what were your thoughts on the Broncos' defensive performance with Von Miller? Keep in mind, no Bradley Chubb.
Yeah, you got to start with Von Miller, right? I mean, just an outstanding debut to the season. Vintage performance from him. Anytime you get to see a big tackle for loss or a big sack from Von Miller, it just hits different, man, when he's been gone for a long time, right? I mean, a year ago, I was at Disney World. I get the news that Von Miller is out for the season, and I'm just like, man, you're trying to ruin my trip at the happiest place on earth. I still remember getting home that night from the Magic Kingdom at Disney World. That was the last time I remember being excited about the potential of even seeing Von Miller on the field for a regular season game. So now fast forward a year from that time, here we are, and he's doing the things that only Von Miller can do. A tackle for loss on Kadarius Toney just completely erased that play from the Giants playbook. A sack early in the game on 3rd and 2. Love to see it. And then vintage Von Miller, a fourth quarter sack to really kind of ice the game, right? I mean, that's kind of how it felt. It was just it was a vintage performance from him. There's no better way to say it. I think it was just truly, truly fun to watch. And like you said, did it without Bradley Chubb. He did it without Robin. And then Batman was on point in this game. And I think, like you said, Draymond Jones, another player that just did it. He just did everything well in this game. You're going to watch the All-22 film, and if you're a Broncos fan, you better be excited about Draymond Jones, and you better be ready for George Payton to cut that man a big-time check. Because, man, he showed what big time money. And I think that what really stood out to me in this game from him, Cody, is the work that he did against the run. I think we've grown accustomed to Draymond Jones doing some really good stuff as a pass rusher, which is great. I mean, he was one of the team's best pass rushers last year, despite having an injury early in the season. But this game, he really did well against the run, and I think that was a point of emphasis for Vic Fangio's defense. You touched on this, the fact that they were kind of bend, not break. I think that's a result a lot of times of Vic Fangio, by design, taking a specific player out of an offense's game plan. In this case, even though he wasn't fully healthy, Saquon Barkley, you want to take Saquon Barkley out of the game. And like he said in his post-game press conference, the longest run for any player on this team for the Giants in this game was 8 yards from Daniel Jones. So mission accomplished when it comes to shutting Saquon Barkley down. Mission accomplished when it comes to shutting, Bronco killer Devontae Booker down, Cody. And, you get that run game shut down and you force Daniel Jones to beat you. That was our key in this game. One of the things that both you and I touched on, you want Daniel Jones to have to beat you. And look what happened, man. The ball was in his hands at a tide-turning play. Daniel Jones with a fumble down in the red zone. And the Giants were threatening to score at a key point. And kudos to, I think, Josie Jewell was credited with the forced fumble there, and Malik Reed with the recovery. So kudos to those guys for not giving up on a play, even though Daniel Jones broke free for a first down run. But we know he leads the league in turnovers since he came into the NFL in 2019. So that's something that the Broncos exploited. You'd like to see more of it. I think that's kind of where I'm at, Cody, after this game, the aftermath. I want to see more from the defensive backs. Specifically, I called out Kyle Fuller during the game, and I'm like, man, I'm waiting to see anything good from Kyle Fuller. We didn't see it really in the preseason, and in the early goings of this game against the Giants, it was tough sledding for him. And then he finally, right after I tweet that, I felt like he comes out with a pass breakup in the red zone and then follows it up with another pass breakup in the red zone. So definitely an all-around strong performance from the defense, but the scary thing is they're just going to get better and better.
It might take some time for them to gel, Sayre. And look, holding the Giants to 60 total yards rushing. And I think a lot of it, too, there's a credit that goes to the Broncos offense because they controlled the time of possession 35 minutes. And there was a long stretch where that New York Giants offense was just sitting on the sideline. And I thought that played well into the favor of the Broncos defense because that meant that the Broncos defense was well rested. In terms of your point about Kyle Fuller, obviously the first series for the Broncos defensively, Shelby Harris jumps, it's a free play, and then he trips in coverage, gives up a 40-yard catch. And look, Sterling Shepard, a fantastic wide receiver, gave the Broncos some problems. But I do want to shout out Ronald Darby. Now, what not a lot of people are going to talk about, they're going to look at the fact that, there were some catches on him, but there were contested catches. Ones where you had a hand on the hip, a hand on the ball. I can't be mad. I thought Ronald Darby played well. I thought that the pass interference call on him early on, that was big to keep that drive live to help get them points. I was not a big fan of that. I felt like it was kind of ticky-tacky because what more do you want a DB to do when he's breaking, trying to drive through the ball to make a play on third down? I mean, that to me, I think was a little frustrating on behalf of that, and it kept the drive alive. And want to touch on Patrick Surtain too, because people are going to, I've already seen a little bit on Twitter, and I don't want to overreact just to the small crowd, right? Because I think it is a small crowd. Patrick Surtain on the touchdown catch that Sterling Shepard had, he's playing outside leverage against a stack formation, condensed to the line of scrimmage. So that tells me one thing, Sayre. Okay, when you're outside leverage, that means that you're expecting help either in the middle of the field or over the top here. So what happens is Sterling Shepard, it's man coverage for the Broncos here on this third down play. Bryce Callahan's lined up on Kyle Rudolph as the number 2 guy. Surtain's on the outside. And what happens is you have Josie Jewell in the middle, and you have Alexander Johnson, and you have a tailback to Johnson's side. So he's keying back. Alexander Johnson's reading the back who leaks out. So he goes and picks him up. Josie Jewell drops back to the middle of the field. And then the in-crossing pattern there, he doesn't see it enough. He doesn't get there, and that leads to the catch run. Now, here's what Patrick Surtain could have done better. He could have wrapped up instead of trying to arm tackle. You can't try to do that to a guy like Sterling Shepard. I'd like to see you bring that physicality and run through the guy, and obviously that's the one touchdown. You're going to go back. But I don't think that was really the negating play here for Patrick Surtain. Vic Fangio mentioned in the post-game press conference, Broncos were in nickel a majority of that game. And because of the fact that the defense was off the field so long, he got that one series. And then down the stretch, he actually played a little bit of dime. He was as a dime backer there. But outside that, we didn't get to see as much of Patrick Surtain the second that we wanted to. And so I'm a little remiss on that. I will touch on Kyle Fuller here before we get off today's episode of the show. Like you said, Sayre, it's like, how do you respond after you give up some plays, right? We didn't see too much from him in preseason. And in this game, we saw a couple of plays where we're like, man, he's giving up these big plays here. But also at the same exact time, you want to see how a guy responds. And you can tell why Vic Fangio trusts him because he responded in a big way. He was not shaken by giving up a couple of big plays downfield. You can see that the New York Giants, they tested him in the red zone, and he came up big with a 4th down stop against Kenny Galladay, knocking the ball away incomplete. Turnover on downs. The Broncos, Melvin Gordon, would go down there and he'd run for a 70-yard touchdown afterwards. But you like to see that. Not to mention, he comes up and he sticks them. And that's something I saw from Ronald Darby. Mm-hmm. I saw it from Kyle Fuller. They came up and they stuck guys today. So a lot you can clean up. And like you said, Sayre, I think that this Broncos defense is going to get better. And Broncos Country, let us know your thoughts in the comment section down below on YouTube about the Broncos 27-13 victory to open up the season against the New York Giants. The next game up this upcoming weekend is going to be on the road against the Jacksonville Jaguars. A lot of storylines there. Don't overlook the Jaguars just yet. Don't overlook anybody at this point. But Sayre and I, we're going to have you covered with all the information you need to know about the Broncos all throughout this week. Practice, recap, whatever's going on, the biggest storylines, key matchups, and a crossover episode with Tony Wiggins, host of Locked On Jaguars. But you can get this exclusive Broncos coverage here, Locked On Broncos, free and available everywhere you get your podcast and on YouTube. So make sure you hit that subscribe button so you never miss out on a day of Denver Broncos coverage. With that said, the Broncos victorious. Sayre, post-game report, mile high salute. The Broncos Country Broncos. We'll see you tomorrow for a brand new episode of the show.